No, it's okay. It's coming. All right, it's starting. It takes a few seconds for it. So like this mega expensive stuff that takes its time.
Yeah, hello everybody. So I'm Jakob Engel. I'm from the Computer Vision Group at Technical University in Munich, headed by Professor Daniel Kremers, who unfortunately couldn't come himself. So I'm going to talk about a small part of the work we do in Munich, mainly work done by these people. So Thomas Schultz is a master's student of mine, Christian Cole, Frank, Jan, Jürgen Sturm, who used to be a postdoc and is now working at Mitaio, and of course Daniel Kremers. So just to give you a quick overview, this is the whole lab. There's a bit more people there, and we work on a lot of other topics as well. So what got me into computer vision is actually not augmented reality, but are these guys. Maybe some of you have seen quadrocopters before. These are actually pretty impressive things that you can do with them. On the left you can see two quadrocopters playing ping pong with each other. On the right you can see figure flying of quadrocopters. They can do flips, triple flips, quadruple flips and so on. It's really impressive. The problem is they can only do this in a controlled environment using small markers attached to the quadrocopter and external motion capture systems to get the pose in real time at a high frequency. If you don't have that, the whole problem gets a lot more complicated. So what we do at the lab is basically think about, well, can we use these technologies in real-world environments like these ones? So we want to fly not only in a lab, we want to use quadrocopters outside, in buildings, outside of buildings, close to people, and so on. And seeing that basically all animals, or most animals, and we humans, navigate using our eyes, the question is, can we use visual SLAM as primary sensor for autonomous navigation? And then, as one possible application, can we densely reconstruct the world from a quadrocopter? So the idea would be to fly around the building, fly around the construction site, and from the video from the quadrocopter get a dense model, preferably in real time. So this kind of motivates the topics I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to start with autonomous quadrocopters. Then I'm going to talk about dense 3D reconstruction from Kinect-style sensors, so Kinect. Then I'm going to talk about my recent work, LSD SLAM, large-scale direct monocular SLAM, which is real-time SLAM with just a monocular camera. And last but not least, I'm going to quickly go over the LSD SLAM implementation for smartphone, which I guess most of you saw already. So, start with autonomous quadrocopters. When I started at the lab, basically the lab started with quadrocopters, and we started working with the Parrot AR drone. Parrot AR drone is commercially available for, by now, 250 euros. You can buy it on Amazon. We use it as it comes out of the box, so we don't want to do any hardware modifications here. We just buy it, and if it breaks, we buy a new one. And communicate with the computer or with the smartphone via wireless LAN. It's very nice for research because it has a lot of onboard sensors. It has a frontal camera, which is streamed to the computer. It has an inertial measurement unit, ultrasound altimeter, air pressure, and a sort of onboard optical flow-based velocity estimation using a downward-facing camera. And then the idea was to combine this with structure from motion systems to be able to localize in a small area autonomously. Now this thing is called AR drone because initially it's sold for playing augmented reality video games with it. So here you can see the drone flying, and in a second you can see what the user of the drone is seeing on the smartphone. Basically the idea is that you can fly around, play either against each other or against the computer, and have like an augmentation on the video stream from the drone. So it's kind of like a mix between real computer game and a real game because you're actually flying a real quadrocopter. As with many things, once this thing came out, researchers started using it very quickly, same as with the Kinect, because it's very good mass-produced hardware, which you couldn't access before that easily. And what we did is we combined it, or what I did for my master thesis is combined it with a monocular SLAM system, namely PTAM, which I guess many of you are familiar with. The problems that we had to overcome are threefold actually. P-term is unreliable, it may fail, and if it fails, we don't want the drone to fly into the next wall. We don't get CDL information, and there is a delay. So what the contributions, or what our contributions are, is we can use other sensors, in this case the IMU mainly, to increase the reliability of the drone, of the SLAM system. We estimate the scale of the whole system from additional sensors. So we have ultrasound, air pressure sensor, and accelerometer, and from that we can get the scale of the map, the absolute scale of the map which we need for navigating. And we propose a method for delay compensation. So you have a large loop here from the camera where the video is taken on the drone. Then the video is streamed to the computer. There you do some processing on it. We can't do any of the processing on board the drone because it's a closed system. It's processed on the computer. We do monocular SLAM basically. Compute some control commands, send them back to the drone. This whole loop takes, depending on Wi-Fi quality, up to 250 milliseconds. And I guess the same is for augmented reality. 200 milliseconds is too much. If you try to control the system with that much delay, it's going to not move very smoothly. So fortunately, a drone moves much more predictable than a human. We can actually predict how it will move in those 250 milliseconds and thereby compensate for the delay. This is then how it looks in practice. So here you can see the drone flying completely autonomously. There's no user intervention, or nobody controlling it. It first initializes P-term and flies up and down a bit to get the scale right, because we get the scale mainly from the altitude. And then flies this predefined figure, which is just a small house. Builds a map of the environment at the same time, and then lands again. Now you can do the same thing by just telling it to stay in one spot, which is what we do here. And when I push it away, it tries to fly back immediately to that one spot using visual SLAM. And this works extremely well. You can see it can deal with a lot of rotation and so on because we fuse with other sensors. So if vision gets lost, we still have the IMU to know the rotation and can fly back to where we want to be. And this is a very good start for a system. Now, this is just a visualization what the digital SLAM system helps. So the robot itself has some kind of odometry measure, so it can measure its motion, it can't measure its position. If you just integrate out the motion, then we get this kind of drift over time, which ends up being there in the end instead of there. Or for the push away part, it ends up being 6 meters away. If you have visual SLAM, you can always relocalize and get back to where you actually want to be. And then we extended that to rudimentary obstacle avoidance, so you can see again, navigation is done using P-term. We build a dense depth image very similar to P-term, and can fly through doors or in between people. Recent work that we did kind of investigates this question. Can we go smaller? With quadrocopters, the thing is, those things can be dangerous. The bigger they are, the more dangerous they are. The AR drone is fairly safe, but if you can get even smaller, you could go fly even in more enclosed environments. You could start flying through windows, close to people, and so on. This is our answer. It was presented actually 3 days ago in Chicago at IROS. It's a very tiny quadrocopter with a camera on board with real-time video feed to a computer. So here what we use the hardware is the Graz quadrocopter. Again, it's available online. It's hobby-grade hardware. You can get it for $180. Again, communicate with the computer over analog transmission. Weighs 19 grams roughly, so it's very light. It's very tiny. It fits in the palm of your hand, and has an IMU, has a compass, and has a barometer. And what we did, we added a really tiny camera to it. So this is a nano camera kit. You can see the camera here with the 3D printed holder and the small wireless transmitter. Weighs 6 additional grams, which is everything this thing can carry. Streams a PAL analog video to the computer. Has a fisheye lens to get a large field of view. Unfortunately, with this thing, the battery only lasts 4 minutes. I don't think you can do with that. In this case, the motion capture system is take flying selfie. So here, we use a motion capture system to track the hand and to track the quadricopter, and then it's programmed to always keep a position 1 meter away from the hand. So just using gestures, you can basically tell it where you want it to flee, you can rotate your hand to rotate the flee, and take a picture of yourself well, from the air. Now, obviously in this case it's not very useful, but you can think of other cases where this might be very useful in the future, when you can do this not only in the motion capture system, but somewhere outside. Maybe at some point in the future, systems like that, where you have a quadricopter which fits into your pocket, will replace the famous GoPro on the stick, which is used nowadays to take these kind of videos. Would be much easier to have a system which you can carry around. Maybe the battery only lasts 5 minutes, but that's enough to take some pictures of you from a perspective that you wouldn't get usually. Obviously the image quality needs to be improved there. So, the challenge here is basically the video quality is really poor. You've seen the video quality, it's an analog video, so there is interference, there is cutouts, dropouts, and so on. So the idea here is to leverage the IMU as much as possible to do outlier rejection, reject whole frames, because sometimes the frames are just corrupted. Those of you who remember non-digital television, well, sometimes it's just whole frames are just full of black and white noise. We have a very, very strong prior on the rotation of the camera from the IMU, using an approach from Zurich. And with that, we can actually do visual navigation with a 25 grams quadricopter. So here's an example. It doesn't fly as stable as the drone yet, but here again it's flying completely autonomously. It's holding a pose and flying a rough square. Here you can see the live video with the visual slam running. Here you can see the map and pose estimate. This is the IMU data. And so this is a kind of proof of concept that with hardware that weighs 25 grams in total, so really nothing, you can actually do this kind of application, which I find quite impressive. And it's hobby-grade hardware, the stuff that you can buy on the internet. The whole hardware on free costs maybe 250 euros. Okay, so that's the quadricopter part. And this whole thing actually motivated me to look more into 3D construction, monocular SLAM, because I guess very similar to augmented reality, the one thing that always breaks down is visual navigation, unfortunately. Or the one thing that is most unreliable and is needed most. So, let's get me to the second part, 3D reconstruction from Kinect images. Kinect, again, mass-produced, very, or relatively cheap sensor, which gives you depth and video. And then we combine two techniques, that is direct image alignment, direct tracking, with volumetric fusion to get models out of this kind of video. So, and this is the only part where I actually will try to explain you a formula. This is direct tracking. Direct tracking is the alternative to kind of key point-based tracking, and it's what's being used for both the Kinect-based work as well as later we're going to use it for the monocular SLAM part. So the idea is actually quite simple. You start off with an image and the pixel-wise depth map for that image, which fortunately you get from the Kinect for free. And now you get a new image, this one, and using the depth map from the keyframe, you can render the new image from the keyframe's perspective. So you can backwarp it to the keyframe. Basically, you take each pixel in the keyframe, project it in 3D using the depth, project it into the new image, look up the color there, and then you get kind of a backwarp frame to the keyframe, assuming some camera goes inside. And now, assuming brightness constancy, the idea is to say, okay, those two should be the same, right? So it's two video frames, not taken that much apart. The brightness shouldn't change between this and this. So make an error function out of it, sum overall pixels, and then it's the least square error function which we can minimize using Gaussian algorithm. And we can directly minimize this photometric error term, so this intensity differences, to get the camera pose as an element of SE3 being rotation and translation. There's a little twist to it. We use a forward compositional formulation, meaning that instead of computing in each iteration of the Gauss-Newton algorithm a small epsilon that's added to the xi, we compute a small epsilon that's multiplied on top of the xi, which is much better conditioned and also faster. The formulas only change basically where you compute the Jakobian and where you compute the update. Otherwise, it's Gauss-Newton, it's iteratively optimizing your function. Yeah.
About the formulation last slide, can you use inverse compositional method?
It's a good question. So the problem is actually we don't. So in practice, what you need to do also is you need to do some robust weighting. The big difference in inverse compositional is, or usually it's faster, but it's only faster because you can pre-compute the Jakobian, which we can't do if the weights change in each iteration. So you don't actually get a speed up out of it. I'm not sure. I think there are some reasons why you can't use inverse compositional formations. Well, maybe that you don't have a left or new frame. So how it looks like in practice is kind of like this. So here you can see the keyframe and the keyframe depth map. In this case, semi-dense depth map color coded. The new frame. And here you can see the backward new frame as it evolves over time, and here you can see the visible. So this is the difference. This is just the backward image, and you can see basically the closer it gets to the real position, the more gray this residual image becomes, everything becomes zero. And this is the backward frame, which starts in the beginning to look like this, with a lot of folds, obviously. And then in the end looks like this one. So you backward the new frame to kind of fit the old frame. Of course, this is a somewhat romanticized, nice version of the whole thing. In practice, there's a couple of things you need to add to it. Mainly, you need to add some kind of robust weighting to get rid of outliers, occlusions, and so on. You need a cost-of-fine approach to deal with large motions. The problem is that the error function, as I showed it, is very much non-convex, and there's not much you can do about it. In order to still be able to track relatively large motion, what's typically done is you downscale the image, solve the whole thing with a low resolution, then you upscale the image again and go layer by layer. And then what we do is we add the statistical normalization to kind of respect noise and depth values as well. The final error function kind of looks like this. It's a bit more complicated, but essentially it's the same. And this already gives you a very simple and clean way of tracking depth images. So here's an example. We'll just use the very original formulation from the Kinect, and what you can see is basically just one frame tracked on the next frame, and then accumulated over time. And what you can see is that the table basically stays at its position, meaning that the position of the camera is estimated roughly correctly. It drifts over time a little bit, but you already get a very good estimate. Now, I said the whole thing is very much non-convex, and one question that always comes up is how large motion can you track? With key points, it's a lot easier because you can get global correspondences, and there are convex ways to at least get a rough, good initial pose. Not so in this case, and this is just a qualitative evaluation of how big frame difference you can track. So here we take this frame 300, which is this image down here, and use direct image alignment with identity as initialization to track each other frame on it. And it converges for all the color regions. So, for instance, and anterior to the pyramid level. So basically, if you only use two pyramid levels, only the defined resolution, then you can only track images very close by to the frame 300. So only images with very small motion. Now, if you upscale the image, go one pyramid level high, you can already track a bit more. One level more, you can track more, and more. And in the end, if you have 6 pyramid levels, that is, start with an image of 30 times 40 pixels, so very, very small. You can track frames, you can track all these frames, which have relatively large interframe motion. So what we can do then is, well, we get registered depth frames now from the Kinect. And the idea is to combine those in a sine distance function to get a 3D model. For that we use volumetric geometric fusion, which is very similar to what Kinect fusion does, for instance. First presented by Curtis and Huber in 1996. And then you get out of all these incomplete depth maps, which are just averaged out over time, you get some nice 3D model that shows you this from. So this is direct tracking combined with volumetric fusion. And then what you can do with that, and this is a very nice application, I think you can scan persons. So this is actually a company funded by Daniel and Jürgen. The idea is that you just sit on a chair that rotates around, there's a fixed Kinect next to it, and it scans you. You get a 3D model that's post-processed automatically, so you got like a small stand to put it on. And then you can send it off to Shapeways and get it printed in 3D. And have gifts for Christmas. I have one of myself here, which I'm just going to pass around. You can, yeah, it's very simple. It takes like 15 minutes. We've already scanned hundreds of people with it. And it gets most interesting. Well, this is our lab. We've got every member of our lab. We've given it to professional photographers who get very nice ideas of what you could do with it. So here's some examples. Okay. So now back to quadricopters. I said the idea was that we can reconstruct the environment from a quadricopter. So that's what we did. We kind of stuck the Kinect on top of the quadricopter, fly around using the pose estimate from the Kinect and using the Kinect FMF to get this model of our kitchen. What you can also see is that we keep the quadricopter in a niche. Sort of. It's wired to the floor, it can't fly away, and that has a very good reason, because if anything goes wrong and this thing flies into the window is gone. Or if it flies into you, then, well, hopefully nothing happens, but something might happen. So this is actually the main motivation why we try to make it smaller. Because this thing weighs 2 kilograms, if it flies into a person, you don't know what's going to happen. If a 25 grams quadricopter flies anywhere, nothing really is going to happen, not even the quadricopter breaks. And then again, you get a model of our social corner out of basically flying on the spot, turning around in a circle, and get a 3D reconstruction of the social corner. Now, I mean, obviously in this case you could also go do it by hand, but the idea is to at some point cut the leash and let this fly around the building and get a reconstruction from the building and so on, or from the whole corridor. One thing that is a major limitation with the volumetric geometry fusion approach is its size. It doesn't scale well because you have 3 dimensions and the memory requirements go up exponentially. So everything I showed you, we used 512 voxels cube, which just so fits on the GPU. The problem is if you want to double the size, just double it, it doesn't fit on the GPU anymore because you have suddenly instead of 3.2 you have 24 gigabytes of RAM that you need. And you can imagine this going up further and further, so it's bad. Our solution to it is to do something that is very well known. For geometry representation, instead of using a fixed grid size, we use octrees. This is work by Steinberger. And octrees basically have the advantage that where you have geometry, you can have a very fine resolution. Where you don't have geometry, you have a very coarse resolution. And then everything fits nicely in the memory because you only actually store the parts that have information. And you get this reconstruction of our lab basically, so you can see the corridor, which is very straight, and then all the different rooms next to the corridor. So that was the 3D reconstruction part. Now, to motivate a bit, the next part is simply Kinect, or using a Kinect, or depending on a Kinect, has a number of drawbacks. Mainly, it doesn't work well outside. It's big, You can't easily put it in a smartphone. I know Google Hardware has one, but the problem is the power consumption is really, really bad. So it's very much desirable to do it without a structured light sensor. And then this is the work I did for the last 1.5 years, large scale direct molecular SLAM or LSD SLAM. And the fundamental idea behind this can we use this direct approach that has been very successful for Kinect style cameras, also for molecular camera. Here's an example. I think this is, I already gave the demo yesterday. So basically I'm moving around a camera, which is in this case a global shutter 640x480 webcam. You can see the video here, and from that I estimate similar depth maps and get a 3D model of it in real time. Yeah. So molecular SLAM or structure for motion has a very long history. Here you can see some random selection of papers from the last 15 years roughly. One thing that nearly all structure for motion, except for very few counterexamples, has in common is that it operates on key points, operates on features. You can see features here. SPO also somewhat operates on features. The only counterexample in this sequence is DCAM actually. So the general idea is always that from the input images you extract features, surf, sift, or brief, and so on. There's a lot of methods to do that. You have descriptors for those features, you match them to each other, and then all geometry estimation, so all estimation of actual geometry is done only on these features. So for tracking, in order to compute the position of the camera, what you do is you don't actually look at the original images anymore, you just look at the feature positions, point positions, and then you minimize some kind of projection error. For mapping, you estimate feature parameters, which typically is 3D point positions. There have been attempts to extend this with other kind of features, for instance by using small straight line segments as features. Again, the thing is that the pattern is the same. You have the input images and you detect small straight line segments, edgelets, track them by minimizing some distance between detected small straight line segments, and map them by estimating parameterized version of small straight line segments. And the big difference to the direct approach, or to direct SLAM, is that you completely skip this abstraction step. So instead of abstracting images to point positions, you track and map directly on the images. So for tracking, you minimize the photometric error, as I showed you before. And for mapping, we estimate sort of the most basic geometric information that you can estimate, and that is per pixel depth values. Of course, this approach is also not used, so here are some references that use key points, and here are some references that propagate this direct approach, and you can see there's a huge gap of about 20 years. There have been some approaches to do that roughly 25 years ago. They got lost in using features and have been discovered by DCAM and our work from our concern. So why would you want to do that? Here's a direct comparison of PTAM and LSD SLAM. I have to add that here we only show keyframes. Tracking is actually done for every single frame. You can see the camera moving smoothly. And the big difference is that while PTAM can only use whatever feature you use, so in this case, corner positions, LSD SLAM uses everything that's covered in this image. So everything that has some kind of image grading, everything that has information, can be exploited and can be reconstructed. Not only corners. And then the result you get is here you get a fairly dense map, which is semi-dense, but much more detailed than what we get out of only point positions. So obviously I can't explain the whole algorithm, but I'm going to try to summarize the most important parts of it. This is a blank sketch. So you start, so there's three rough parts: tracking, depth estimation, and global map optimization. This is the part that makes it global SLAM. Here you just have a visual memory pipeline. I'm going to start with the tracking part. And this is in this case actually quite simple because tracking is just the exact same thing as I showed previously for pinning images. So for now, only for the tracking part, we assume that we have a depth map, which in this case is semi-dense, so it doesn't contain depth for every pixel anymore. It only contains depth for those pixels that I can get depth for. And then tracking operates by aligning density one frame to the key, a new frame to the key frame. And this is done, you can see the visualization with multi-resolution approach. So you can see in the beginning it starts with a very, very coarse resolution, then it gets finer and finer. One interesting thing about this is that most of the motion is already tracked on the coarsest pyramid levels. And you only get a small increase in accuracy the further down you go. So you can see basically in the beginning most of the motion happens now, and here there's only very, very few changes. So basically the resolution gets better, the accuracy gets a little bit better, but you get most of the estimate already very early on. And this is very nice because the coarser the resolution, the faster the whole thing is. If you do it on the on the highest pyramid level, 40 times 12 pixels, it takes less than half a millisecond to track one frame to another. If you do it on 8 times 60, it takes still less than 1 millisecond to track one frame on another, and you already get a very, very good estimate of what the relative position is. And if you can track the frame on each other, or if it diverges.
So do you use a linear subpixel interpolation for the first level? So how can you get so accurate for the first level?
Yes. So it's implicit. There's implicitly sub-accuracy because during the evaluation of the gradients and the error function, we have to find subpixel accurate, and we have to do subpixel accurate interpolation.
Yeah.
So yes.
So it's a linear interpolation for the gradient.
It's linear interpolation basically. So basically, I can actually show you the exact point where that happens. So here in this error function, you see I subtract the color or intensity at the keyframe position from this thing, and this thing is basically take the point, warp it into the other frame, and then you get some kind of subpixel accurate location. And then we want the intensity at that point, so that's subpixel accurate. So the nice thing is you can really get a very you can very quickly get a rough idea of how well those two frames align, and see whether it fits with the rest of your geometry, and if not, discard it. Any questions for tracking so far?
Yeah. How do you deal with lighting changes?
We ignore them.
Yeah, how do you ignore them effectively?
Actually, there's a good argument why we can ignore them very well, and that is we only use pixels that have a very high intensity gradient by design. And if you have a very high intensity gradient from black to white, and everything gets a bit brighter, then the best alignment is still the same. It doesn't change by much, it only changes by a very, very small bit. If we were to use every single pixel, then those lighting changes would have bigger effect. Because basically, how much effect lighting changes have depends on the image gradient. The smaller the image gradient, the larger the shift from a small lighting change. If you have a strong image gradient, then not much happens. Nevertheless, I mean, the whole method is made for video, so we won't have to deal with morning, afternoon, and evening lighting changes. We only have to deal basically with auto shutter or clouds appearing sun.
So hard shadows will still give you problems.
Hmm?
Hard shadows will still give you problems.
You mean because they move?
And because they're new image gradients in the scene.
Yes. So new image gradients is usually not a problem because we have that a lot anyway, because there's this occlusions and disocclusions. If they move, that's a bit bad. If they move very little bit, and that kind of skews or biases the whole estimation. Actually, what's an even bigger problem in practice is moving clouds, because they tend to move relatively fast, and if half the image is clouds, then the alignment kind of gets confused. I'm pretty sure you can quite easily kind of discard clouds and kind of protect clouds instead of kind of use them. But, you know, that is not a problem. Okay, so second part, depth estimation. So for now we have the tracking, but the thing is, for direct tracking you need pixel-wise depth, which from a Kinect you have from the sensor, which from a camera we need to estimate. So this is actually our contribution to an ICCB paper from last year. We estimate semi-dense depth maps in a probabilistic incremental fashion. So as basic representation, what we have is for each pixel a Gaussian probability distribution on the inverse depth. So for each pixel we have a mean inverse depth and an inverse depth variance. And then this probability distribution starts off with I don't know anything. And then incrementally we get more video frames, we can do many small baseline stereo comparisons, get more information, and fuse this all in Bayesian framework into this depth map. So the idea is basically start off with a newly created keyframe which doesn't have depth values at the newly visible areas. The first frame that we use to get information is a very small baseline frame, which has the advantage that we very well know where the correspondence for this pixel is because the camera only moves a small bit. First get a little bit of information, then fuse that into the depth map, do another stereo with the next frame, and so on. In the end, get continuously refining depth map over time. And for this, what we do is a very strict information selection to make it run in real time on a CPU laptop. And here the idea is basically we only want to invest work if we actually can get information. And unfortunately, there's many cases where we can't get information, so we don't want to invest work to do stereo. The most obvious case is if there's absolutely no texture, for instance here on the gray sky, then doing stereo is not going to tell me anything about that at that point. So there's other cases, for instance here the camera will move backwards, so in the epipole of the image we can't get stereo information either because there's no parallax. Here, where the image gradient is parallel to the epipolar line, you can get very nice gradient, you can get very nice stereo information. Where the image gradient happens to be parallel to the epipolar line, as you can see in these areas, we can detect it also very quickly and say, okay, for this pixel I don't need to do stereo because whatever happens, I'm not going to get much information out of it. And there's a number of criteria that you can compute very quickly to get the accuracy of stereo of this can't be first part. We add in some edge preserving smoothing, distance-based keyframe selection. In practice, it kind of looks like this. So here you can see the keyframe on the top left corner. And you can see all the epipolar line segments searched in slow motion for each new frame. Remember, this is an approach that's inherently designed for videos, so once I take a new frame for which I want to get a depth map, I start off with frames with a very small baseline, and then the baseline automatically increases because the camera tends to move further away. So each time you see this red blinking large line, that's when new hypotheses are visualized. Initially very uncertain, and then the more frames are moved into it, the smaller the line segment that I have to search for gets, and the more accurate the information gets. For this, of course, we also use the prior hypothesis. So if you already know the depth of the pixel, you know where to search for it. So this is a very fast and efficient way of doing semi-dense stereo to get depth map.
So what exactly are you looking for here? Is it the edge step or is it the correct brightness?
It's a 5-pixel long descriptor along the epipolar line. So it's sort of like a one-dimensional patch which only has 5 brightness values. Because we have to search along the epipolar line anyway, we can reuse 4 of them, so it's very fast. Yeah. But we don't do any normalized cross correlation or anything like that, so it's really not very robust to lighting changes. In practice, it still works fine.
But you could in this case, since you have 1D search, easily normalize them.
Yes. Actually, the idea would be more to, during tracking already, normalize for after lagging changes, and then you can use this area. The thing is, if we only have a 5-pixel descriptor, so if you do normalize cross-correlation, in many cases all the information you have gets lost, or too much information gets lost.
And you search for all, so for each point independently. It's not a global optimization or whatever, it's really each point independently.
For each point?
Each point independently from the other points.
Yes.
So if you have a lot of correlation, because especially along lines, I don't know, you could group with themselves and so.
Yes. Yes, we could do that. I'm not sure if it actually gains too much speed, but the thing is, for that you would have to again do some kind of higher level, have to find lines and do some kind of higher level interpretation, which we kind of deliberately don't do here. We operate on per pixel basis. One thing that I don't have in the slides, which we also do, is that we can for each pixel independently use different reference range. So if for a pixel I already have very good hypothesis, a very good hypothesis, then I can use a larger baseline frame. If I don't have a very good hypothesis, then I want to use the smallest baseline frame. So actually, this is kind of a tailored view. Each of these lines actually lives in different image, very much independent of each other, depending on how good the prior information is. So that's the depth estimation part. And these two things together give you a visual odometry. So the new frame comes from the camera. It's tracked, so there's a rigid body aligned to the current keyframe. Then it's used to either refine the keyframe using stereo, or we create a new keyframe if the camera moves too much and replace the current keyframe, and then the current keyframe is again used to track the next frame. This is a classical cycle in real-time structure for motion. You need to initialize it somehow, and what we found is that it works very well if you just initialize it with a random left run. So we start off with a huge standard variation or a huge variance and random depth values, and then kind of let this alternating optimization between depth optimization in the way of stereo and pose optimization using diagonal alignment take care of falling towards a local optimum, which usually is a consistent state, consistent depth. Yes.
So your errors are absorption, right? I guess for the depth estimate. Or what's the underlying error model? Because it seems like with the robust cost function and so on, you have a pretty it would have to have a pretty sophisticated error model to keep track of.
So which error model? For the photometric error?
No, not for the photometric, for the geometric, for the depth error, basically. Right? So because if you want to track that, then you have a robust cost function. That's another true.
So we model the geometry as kind of Gaussian on the inlet depth.
Why? But it is not, because you have a robust cost function. So you just ignore it and just go.
Which robust cost function do you mean?
Well, we can also take this offline.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the robust cost function for tracking that we use is Hugo weights to get rid of outliers usually. Because you can imagine that for this kind of tracking we have a lot of pixels that are occluded or disoccluded, or maybe some movements, shadows and so on. So then the third big component is to make SLAM out of disodometry. And this is actually what makes the whole thing large scale and compete with key point-based approaches. So disodometry SLAM part. In order to do this, the first thing that you need to know or notice is that in monocular SLAM the scale is not observable, as you all know. And that means that over time the scale drifts. So I get accumulated error in position, rotation, and scale. And so here I kind of walk once around this machine. Just before the loop is closed, the structure exists twice. Once small, one's big. And in order to close the loop, we kind of need to take that into account. So we start with, or in this case, we take two keyframes, which is this keyframe and this keyframe, that show the same structure but at a different scale. And again, we start off with direct image alignment. This is the same error function as I showed you before. But now there's also a scale difference. And we can track for that as well. So we changed two things. First of all, instead of tracking for a rigid body motion between the two frames, we track for scale rigid body motion. So instead of tracking for a SE3 element, we track for a SIM3 element. So now the 7 parameters. Mathematically, it works beautifully and the exact same way. It's still the algebra, the group correspondence between the two. You can use the same mathematical concepts in the optimization. And the second thing to kind of constrain the 7 components is we add depth residual, which says, okay, I have these two images. If I warp one to the other, then the color shouldn't change and the depth shouldn't change. So this basically says, okay, photo consistency and depth consistency. And this constrains the scale between the two keyframes, and what I get out for tracking one keyframe on another is the scale pose between the two keyframes. Again, we have to add all these small things that actually make it work. Gauss-Newton optimization, multi-resolution approach, Huber norm to be robust to outliers, statistical normalization, which also takes care of the weighting between intensity units and distance units. So we divide each residual by its standard variation, by its variance. And then the result of that, we stuff into post-graph optimization. Post-graph optimization just takes the number of keyframes, constraints between keyframes, and then optimizes each keyframe's position to best fit all these constraints. Looks like this. This is how it looks in practice. So here the camera moves around the desk. New keyframes are created. The constraints between keyframes are tracked. And the more constraints are added, the more the individual depth map kind of shift into place, and one depth map aligns with the other and give a good image of the overall geometry of the scene. So this is the whole pipeline. Tracking, mapping, and optimization. And to show you some results, this is the sequence here. You can see the random initial depth map. And then the camera starts moving and it converges to a decent initial depth map. Black is close to the camera and green is far away. Here, this is a 6-minute sequence where we walked around the building to get a really, really large loop in the end to close. You can see now. You can also see that there's a lot of scale drift. So you can see, well, very quickly you could see. You can see this building, once here, once there, here is a lot bigger than here, but because of the scale alignment, we can actually get the scale difference and explicitly put it into the post-graph and optimize over it. And this is all done in real time on the CPU of the laptop, so we don't even need a GPU. The final post-graph in this example contains 16,000 tracked frames. 800 keyframes, 11,000 constraints, and 51 million points. One nice thing is that for each of those points, we not only have the point, but we also have a variance estimate on the point. So we don't show all the points, we only show the points that are thresholded by a certain variance, so we only show the ones that are accurate. If we were to show every point, it would be just a huge mess of points, but we know which ones are good, so we can just show those. Here's a second example, maybe you recognize it. It's actually from TU Munich, where ISMO was. 12-minute sequence, 640 times 480 at 50 frames per second. I tried to walk around and get a good view of the scene from every point. This is the food court next to the subway station. And you can also get, there's a very good structure everywhere within its rating. So here there's cobblestones, you get line structure, and there's tar, and unfortunately with that image resolution, tar just looks like gray, so you don't get anything. And then it's somewhat aligned with what Google Maps says. Here's another example for those of you that were at ECCB. This is the ECCB conference venue from a couple of days ago. Again, I walked around for 7 minutes in this case, took a video of the whole room. And you can see all the tables that were prepared for reception, which took place here a couple of hours later. You can see chairs, you can see actually a lot of people sitting here. And again, 25,000 tracked frames, because we tracked the camera in real time at 50 frames per second. 450 keyframes, 7,000 constraints, and 51 million frames. So it's quite a lot. So to summarize LSD SLAM, there are 3 main ingredients. Direct image alignment, for which we in the paper give a general formulation as Gauss-Newton minimization on Riemann folds, which is then used for both initial frame tracking on rigid body pose and loop builder tracking on scaled rigid body pose. Semi-dense stereo, which works by filtering over many small baseline stereo comparisons in a small baseline to large baseline manner, using a strict information selection, so we only do stereo where we can actually get information out of it. And post-graph optimization on Sim3 to build a global consistent map. It's a large-scale direct remote SLAM system which operates entirely without key points or features. It's entirely meant for operating on video, so it would not work on photo collections because you need these frame by frame, you need small increments between the frames. It's real-time on the CPU, and as of 3 days or something like that, I'm going to put it open source, so you can use it. If you just want to use the models generated by Stanford Code, you can also use it for that. We're also going to put some example sequences online, for instance the report and the ECCB reception hall. I'm going to put the video as well as the generated point cloud online so you can download it. And you can scan all that if you want. Okay, so that's the LSD SLAM part, large-scale direct remote SLAM. And then, quite quickly, because I guess most of you have seen that part already, because it runs in real time on a laptop CPU, we figured, okay, we don't need to use it, we can put it on a smartphone, and that's what we did. Here's an example video of LSD SLAM running on smartphone in real time, just showing the F-map keyframes. And this is the pipeline. Basically, pose estimation and mapping are the same as before, just at half resolution. We skipped the SLAM part, mainly because the 2 things were developed in parallel. And what we add is a wall model creation, which is a very coarse approach to do something with these semi-dense data maps, something practical value. So I'm just going to explain this part. So there's 3 main steps to it. The idea is we want to get a world model that's kind of suitable to do basic augmented reality interaction with the world. First thing we do is define the ground plane. So we use the IMU to detect where up is, and then do a very simple plane sweep to find like the first supporting plane in that direction. Then we create a low resolution depth map to create a physical world model. So starting with the semi-dense depth map at the relatively high resolution that we get, we kind of generate a very low resolution, coarse, but dense depth map to simulate the physical world. It's done using a very basic variational methods approach. So we want to kind of in-paint this depth map using the detected ground plane and using the data we have. So what we do is we say, okay, for each pixel, first the pixel should be closed in data for all the pixels for which I have data. Second, if I don't have data, I just assume that's where the ground plane is. So for all the regions where there's no data, I want the pixel to be close to the ground plane. And third, add regularizer, put variation to make it smooth, but keep edges there. And then to minimize this using simple gradient descent, because it's a very low resolution, it works in real time. And feed this into physics, and you need to get the collision mesh outfit. So here you can see the position from which the image was taken. This image actually is a screenshot from a smartphone. And the rough collision mesh where you can see the table, a car on the table, and well, you kind of guess that the background's further away and so on. And then you can do that, you can use that to do very rudimentary augmented reality interaction. So here it's just a ground plane detection. Obviously we have that map and put some boxes on that. You can see the image is quite smooth. Unfortunately, if you record the screen, it's not that smooth anymore. Here's another example, inspired by DCAM. Apparently driving cars around virtual environments is quite popular. So what we did is, well, we jumped with the car over this ramp, which is much more difficult than it looks like. Again, this is just a generic environment, so we don't use any kind of prior knowledge about the map, no template whatsoever. Yeah, not very good driver. Okay, so those were the 4 topics that I want to talk about. And I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. Questions?
So going back to the work on volumetric large-scale reconstruction with oak trees, I believe. How do you handle drift in that case? Or for instance, do you consider already a well-registered global map?
The way that one is done, basically, we have a SLAM system for the Kinect, so we basically track the whole sequence and then we do the volumetric integration afterwards.
Right. So the oak tree is not run in real time?
No. It runs in real-time computation-wise, but it's run after the whole sequence is recorded.
Okay.
But yeah, exactly, because that's the big problem. In an Octree, once you have volumetric representation, you can't shift stuff around anymore, which is the big argument against using volumetric representations, actually. So yeah, that's why every loop is closed, the cameras are all tracked, and then everything is integrated.
More questions?
So can you tell us when it fails? What is this now?
Well, it fails for rotation and movement.
Only pure.
Yes. So that's actually the main failure case. If you give it to somebody and it's like, cool, I can scan the environment. It doesn't work.
Yes,
which I referred yesterday about as a big problem in practice. When else does it fail? So there's lots of, I'd say, engineering left to do. For instance, right now, once something has been added to the map, it's never removed, which is a bit of a problem because if a keyframe is taken with my hand directly in front of the camera, then this creates a lot of dirt in the reconstruction and is never removed. You can do that. You can take keyframes out of the photograph without problems. Well, it fails, as I said. I had some problems with moving clouds. If more than half the image is clouds and the clouds move all in the same way, then the tracking gets confused between clouds and structure. If you have too strong lighting adjustments, so for instance, if you are in this room and then would go outside in bright sunshine, then the auto shutter of the camera might kill the system. In practice, it's fairly robust for that. Otherwise, I mean, the classical things, too much motion doesn't work. In all the sequences I showed you, it's sequences of public places, and there were lots of people walking around where I took the videos, so it's fairly robust to movement. However, usually the moving objects create artifacts in the reconstruction, because they're visible in some frames, partly visible. They move, so the depth triangulation doesn't work properly, and they create dirt in the reconstruction.
Yeah, so you have noise or
And as I said, we don't take anything out that one put in, so the no stays forever. What helps a lot is using a wide angle.
Yes, that's the standard statement. Nobody's going to complain.
Yes.
I think you didn't talk about relocalization.
I didn't. It's in the code, it's not in the paper, that's why I didn't. So what we do for relocalization, that's why I put the small parts in the slide where I said that tracking on a very coarse pyramid level is very fast. So what we do is we just brute force try to track each new frame on each keyframe on a very coarse level, and then very quickly decide, okay, that tracking result makes sense, that doesn't make sense, and it takes half a millisecond to track on all keyframes. So we can try, if the map isn't too big, we can try it on all keyframes and relocalize that way. It doesn't scale with increasingly big amounts of things.
You also do have the depth maps for the lower resolution keyframes.
Or the lower resolution keyframes, yes. So we keep in memory low resolution versions of each keyframe and each keyframe depth map to do exactly this kind of relocalization. If you want to go more large scale, you will need methods that are convex or that can better solve global repositioning. And for that, I believe key points will still be the method of choice, because it makes it much easier to relocalize against a normal map if you don't have any prior information.
Have you done any side-by-side comparison on tracking quality of your method compared to DTAM? In the sense, I remember one of the aspects of DTAM was using fully dense tracking was in case of fast motion when you have to actually take gradients. Will that be the quality match?
So for fast motion, I would say it's very similar to DTAM. It can survive fast motion and motion growth. I haven't done a direct comparison simply because I don't have the code of DTAM, and our re-implementation, we didn't want to compare it to copy. I have done numeric evaluations with DTAM. The problem there is that there's very few benchmark sequences out there which are fit for monocular SLAM, because most of the benchmark sequences are made for stereo or Kinect-based SLAM, and in those two cases you can track through rotation. So most of the benchmark sequences just don't work for monocular case. There are some numbers in there.
Can you do simultaneous mapping with multiple quad rotors?
I know there's work on that. For instance, the Sky and Zurich. We're not working for that. But yeah, I mean, you can do that even starting at what they do, they start at different unknown locations, and then one central server kind of stitches the maps together once they observe common regions.
And also, is the Crazy Fly self-recharging? With a battery time of 4 minutes, I guess that's the recharging.
Yeah.
Can it self-recharge, or do you have to plug it in?
We have to plug it into USB.
Okay.
So it's quite annoying to do experiments with it because you always have 4 minutes and then you should charge it. Charging takes 20 minutes, so it's fine.
Yeah, but you should not charge and decharge it immediately afterwards. Huh? You're killing the battery.
Batteries cost €2.
Okay, that's a change.
We could just take a new battery.
More questions?
How much is the little 3D printed model of yourself? How much was it?
Mainly depends on how thick you make it, how thick you make the wall. I think between 10 and 25 euros. It's not that expensive. I guess shipping from the US is the most expensive part.
So it's actually really multicolored, right? So it's not painted. It's really multicolored.
That's why you can't use a home 3D printer, because they don't get color that well.
They need 16 colors.
Yes. So they have color 3D printers.
Any more questions? No, then let's thank the speaker again.